104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports. Our friend Jordan Ranaan, of course, covering Big Blue for the Mothership and ESPN.com. Jordan, I know you wrote about this, but where in the world is Owa Odighizuwa?
Yeah, he's off the grid a little bit. I mean, he talked to the Giants, and my understanding is he talked to General Manager Jerry Reese, front office, and they kind of told him just to take his time and, kind of figure out what he wants to do. He had talked about possibly getting away from football, at least for the time being. So he's off on a self-finding mission as far as I'm aware. So that's the deal with Owa. I think in the end, he'll end up coming back. Young guy trying to find himself right now and see how it turns out. But, the reality is, how big a factor is it for the Giants? It's a guy who has yet to record his first career sack. So, yes, they would like to get something out of him. Is he irreplaceable? I do not think that is the case.
Is there any timeline for his return?
No, well, what return? He doesn't really need to be there, right? What does he need to be there for? He can kind of go do his thing. He really doesn't need to be there until mid-June. They have a mandatory mini-camp. So even if he decides, okay, he doesn't want to come to that, he could just take the fine for that and come and aim for beginning of training camp if that's what his desire is. So they're going to be very careful with this. They're going to let him have his time, not going to pressure him into doing anything, make sure that playing football long-term is something he wants to do, and then he's fully committed and dedicated to it. But right now they're just going to give him his space.
Jordan Ranaan with us. Of course, he's our guy when it comes to the Giants. Jordan, let's talk about the fun stuff. We're going shopping. It's the draft. What do you think the Giants are shopping for in round one?
Yeah, I mean, look, people are saying they're all in, they're going to be all in. But you don't go all in. The draft is not an all-in proposition. The draft is you're looking into building for the future. Nobody drafts for day one and, we need a left tackle this year, so we're drafting a tackle in the first round. That's just not the way anybody attacks the draft unless you have the number one pick. Then you can get anybody you want. But let's say the Giants went into that. Let's say they did have that attitude, right? They need an offensive tackle, right? Let's say they have two top offensive tackles listed on their board, and one of them gets taken, right? I mean, both of them get taken, let's say. What do they do now? We're completely stuck. We got to draft an offensive tackle now that we have with the second round grade at pick number 23. It just doesn't work that way. So, they're going to go and they'll take a guy who's at the top of their board, near the top of their board, at a position that they could use because, let's be honest, they're not going to draft another safety or certain positions at this point. So, it's just a matter of who's there, when they pick 23rd overall in the draft. Guys, I think they would be interested if they're there. Christian McCaffrey is one guy. Linebackers, Jared Davis from Florida, Zach Cunningham from Vanderbilt. The O.J. Howard, if miraculously he was there at 23, a tight end with that ability to block and catch passes. I don't think he'll be there, though. So it's really a matter, and the quarterback situation is going to linger and hover over this team now for the next couple of years because Eli Manning is 36 years old, and professional football players just do not last. Professional athletes in general do not last much past 36 years old. So the end is coming for Eli Manning. It's just a matter of when. It could be this year. The might be the real downswing. It could be next year. It could be the year after. But the Giants have to start looking at that. And if Deshaun Watson or Mitchell Trubisky are still available when they pick 23, I think that's one that they would look at very long and hard and think over and decide of whether that's something they want to do. And it's a long-term move. It doesn't help them in the short term in the immediate 2017 season, but I think it's a move that they have to definitely strongly consider. And I personally, I think they pull the trigger on both those. Either one of those, not both those. You can't get both of them.
Jordan, what about the kid who actually is kind of politicking to be a Giant, the tight end from Miami, Njoku?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. He's not. I have a hard time seeing that happening. Look, everyone's saying Njoku and Ramchick is like the two most likely guys. You be very, very careful what you're listening to. I don't see even both those guys. We're talking about guys who had 1 year production. Njoku is not an all-around tight end. His blocking is not refined yet, and he's a project a little bit. I mean, he's very raw as a football player. So that's not the kind of first-round pick the Giants usually go for. They usually go for more guys that check off the boxes more in the first round, and the high upside risk guys more maybe in the second round. Even JPP, who was a high upside guy when they drafted him in the first round, he was more productive during his college career than Njoku, who I believe has started like 8 or 9 career games at most at Miami. I would be surprised if they went that route.
You brought up Christian McCaffrey as a possibility. If they don't get that running back in the first round, is it second, third round possibility we see a running back no matter what added to this roster?
I think it will, but I don't know if it has to be in any of those specific rounds. Running back is a position where you really can get guys all up and down the draft. So you definitely do not press. But this is a pretty good running back class. And so, look, they got Paul Perkins last year, in the 5th round. So those kind of guys, it's more likely to get guys like that in the draft at that position than there is in any other position. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting running backs in this draft that I would keep an eye on, McCaffrey being one of them, Alvin Kamara from Tennessee, another one, Wayne Gallman from Clemson. These are guys that I would watch very closely if you're looking at for the Giants.
Jordan Ranaan from ESPN.com covering the Giants, getting ready for the draft. Now, obviously, the offensive line was a bit of an issue last year. Not a great draft to pick up offensive linemen. Do you see them burning some picks on the O-line?
Yeah, I think the most likely scenario, because it's not very good at the top, is, second, third, fourth round, the Giants start picking up offensive linemen. I kind of expect them to pick up, I think, I would say 2 offensive linemen from rounds 1 to 4, I think is realistic. And, everyone talks about the top guys and, the first round, and I'm just not sure the value is going to match with the Giants pick in the first round. So I'm thinking that it's probably less than 50% to end up adding an offensive lineman in the first round. But, Antonio Garcia, an interesting offensive line prospect from Troy. That's somebody I'd watch and keep an eye on. Deion Dawkins, a guy from Temple. He'll be probably, I've talked to a couple people now that like him. He'll probably be a second-round pick. So if he's there for the Giants in the second round, I think that would be a very strong possibility for them. Some people view him as a tackle. Most people view him as a guard in the pros, but some people think he could do both. So very interesting prospect there, and somebody I would keep an eye on for the Giants. And then there's some long-range kind of offensive line guys. Asiata is an interesting prospect as a guard for the Giants, I think, in the middle round. So look at guys like that along the way. Second, third, fourth round kind of guys is definitely a spot where you can get a guard, and I think they'll probably add to the mix with the guard in the draft. It's somewhere around there because there are a good amount of mid-range kind of offensive linemen available in this draft. Ryan Ramczyk is the guy from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Hard time for me. I'd already talked about that. I'd be very surprised if they went that way. My understanding is they were not. It wasn't a guy that jumped off the Giants page, and so I really have a hard time seeing them having. So I know he's the most common person that people say that the Giants are going to draft at 23, but I'd be very surprised. Garrett Bowles and Cam Robinson are the 2 other guys. I think Bowles is is the young guy out of not really that young because he's actually an older guy coming out of the draft. Out of Utah, had a little bit of a troubled past, very athletic, more along the lines of the kind of guys the Giants were like. And then Cam Robinson, who I'm wishy-washy on for the Giants because he has a little background issues also. So that might be something that prevents them from making him a potential first-round pick because, look, they're trying to get as clean prospects as possible in the first round. And maybe as they go along, then they'll take a little more risk. I think that's the mindset that Jerry Reese and his staff usually have in the draft, and doubt it's going to change this year.
Are they done with free agency, Jordan, or is there still a chance the big man Hankins comes back?
Still a chance. We're still hanging on that. I believe there's another team in the mix. That's kind of what I've been hearing. Don't know who, don't know how much, don't know what the deal is. But, yeah, so we're kind of in a wait-and-see mode. He seems to be in no rush, and the Giants aren't pressing them on that either. So that would alter their draft philosophy, I think, though, a little bit. You know, if Jonathan Higgins doesn't come back, all of a sudden the defensive tackle position is more important, especially long-term, than it is if they bring him back. Because if they bring him back, especially if it's a multi-year deal, I mean, it changes the look of their interior, their defensive line for the next three years. So that will be a big factor in the Giants' first 2 rounds of the draft.
Jordan Ranaan covers the Giants like nobody else for ESPN.com. We appreciate you, brother, and I know this is getting to the fun part of the season for you, where you get to kind of just see where everything fits. Yeah,
definitely, it should be fun. I mean, they're just trying to refine that roster. I mean, this is going to be a pretty decent team because that defense is going to be good. I mean, that's a pretty good defense that they had last year, and they're bringing it back another year and has a chance to elevate even more. So. The draft is a little different, though, this year because it's harder to pinpoint guys because we're talking about 23. We're not talking about 9 and 10, where it's a little easier. You can kind of see where the draft is going. At 23, it's kind of hard to see. And, hey, the question that the Giants might be facing is, which guys are, quote-unquote, dropping, guys
right.
that we weren't expecting being there at 23. Because you remember back a few years ago, Prince Mukamara.
Yeah.
I forget exactly when he was picked. I think it was like 19 or something. But, the Giants didn't expect him to be available when they were picking. They had done very little background work on him because they expected him to be around the top 10 guy. And the next thing you know is that's the kind of guy they took. So let's say, throw out a name. Which guy, let's say this guy X, player X, Leonard Fournette falls, it could, change the situation greatly, which I don't think, by the way, Leonard Fournette.
But we can dream. We can dream. All right, Jordan, man, we appreciate you, brother.
You got it, man. If they did, though, they better take him. That's for sure.
Yeah,
right.
They better. Absolutely.
There'd be a rush on those jerseys as soon as he got drafted.
Mm-hmm.
It would be. That would make it interesting, now, wouldn't it? That's what we need, right? That's what we need around here for entertainment purposes. I
watched Fournette torch Syracuse in 2015. Could have ran for 400 yards. I'd be doing cartwheels.
I think the
only
way that happens is if we get something crazy that's never happened before, like, I don't know, a gas mask hooked to a bomb.
Yeah, gas mask bomb. And then at that point, the Giants are not going to be drafted. And then at that point, you have John Maris sitting in the front row of the draft room muttering, "We're not drafting that guy. We're not drafting that guy."
And then what's it like? The Raiders at 24 end up with Fournette. So,
yeah, exactly.
All right, brother. We'll see you. We're going to be out to camp, and we'll be in touch with you before then.
I like it, man. I like it. We'll see you.